Hi everyone, I'm Moonrain and today I'm going to do a VR to Miss Kulala's hashtag tarot for the Querent, but with a fun twist. I won't be using any tarot cards and instead will be using lesser known systems with the 4 questions provided. I hope this inspires you to share your own process so we can all learn from each other. So let's begin. All right, let's start with the first question. I just found out my partner was unfaithful. What do I need to know to decide whether to stay or to go? So for this question, I'm going to use the archetype cards as well as the Sibilla. So archetype cards reveal the role that the person will be playing in the relationship, along with any fears, any blockages, or attachment patterns that might be influencing the relationship. The particular archetype cards that I'm using is by Caroline Miss, and they're just simply called archetype cards. Sorry, that's the guidebook. All right, and here on the other end we have the Sibilla. Sibilla tells you the story of the events, the people, and any outside influences around you. So I feel like together, see, it gives you like misfortune and love. So it's very direct. So this kind of gives you more of the internal landscape versus the external landscape. And I think both of them together would really work well in this particular type of question. So let's begin. All right. Before we start the spread, I'm kind of getting like a little pre-reading here. We're going to just kind of get information in regards to the energy or the role that the person is embodying, and just trying to get an understanding why this person would consider staying if somebody was unfaithful, right? Like we're seeing if there's any fears, attachments, blockages, or things like that. Sorry, I got stuck here. All right, so we got healer and gambler. So from what we gather here is this person tends to be the one who tends to others, right? And specifically in this relationship. When we have gambler as the shadow attribute, we're seeing that this person is putting themselves at risk in order for a bigger payoff, right? So we're seeing a person who thinks that things will get better, things will change, or perhaps even go back to what they used to be. So now we're kind of getting a better idea of what their role is right now, how they're operating, right? So we're seeing somebody who is the one who's kind of carrying that burden of the relationship, make sure that the other one is doing better, may even like feel like they're walking on eggshells just to make the other person feel better, but they're putting themselves at risk here because they might not be happy and hoping that things will get better. So we already understand maybe why they're willing to stay. So now that we have that kind of preliminary reading, we're going to now do a spread where we're going to have 2 sides. One side is what will happen if they were to stay, and then the other side, what will happen if they were to leave. Now for this side, which is the staying side, we're going to kind of get a glimpse of what their role will be. Will it change? Will it be the same? And kind of like a look ahead with the Sibilla cards within the next 3-6 months, and the same will go for the other side. All right, let's get ready. All right, let's get some information in the next 3 to 6 months. Okay, so we have pioneer and prostitute as the roles that they would embody in that relationship. So for pioneer, we're seeing that they're going to try something different and new in order for their relationship to remain stable or to keep their partner. In regards to the word prostitute, this is the shadow, because I'm using this as light and this is the shadow. They're compromising their value, right? So in context of relationship, I'm seeing that they're trying something different, trying something new. However, during this process, they're trying to compromise their value in order to maintain that person here. So that would be their light and shadow role here in the relationship. Now, in regards to what will happen in 3 to 6 months, I'm kind of seeing more of the internal aspect of things. The room would be more of the intimate parts of them in the relationship. Prison shows more of that mindset. So I feel like this person feels boxed in, is unable to be themselves or express themselves. And journey, I would see more of like that sense of hope and for things to improve or get better. And the way I would read this particular spread would be from left to, or I mean, from right to left, where we're seeing more of the direction coming in from this person who's on the horse. I know Sibilla is not necessarily directional, but this is very much indicating to look from right to left. So we're seeing that hope that things will get better, but the principal theme here is that prison cell here, that we're just not seeing that things are improving, things are progressing. It's more of just that mindset that they just don't feel like, that they feel stuck and things are not improving. And I think that's probably why they're trying to be innovative and different with that theme here of pioneer. So they're trying to just spruce things up in the relationship, but it's compromising their values. They still feel stuck. Nothing's improving, with that longing, that sense of hope that things will get better. That's what I'm getting out of these cards. And any hidden influences, and this is all coming from the word scholar here. So scholar doesn't necessarily always mean something in regards to academia. It could mean a long-lasting mature relationship in context of love. So I would say that the reason why they're kind of holding in and, you know, trying something different, trying something new, despite the fact that it might be affecting or compromising their values, and they're willing to feel stuck and unable to move forward, is because they just want to be seen as having a long-lasting relationship despite the consequences here. So if I were to summarize this to the querent, I would say, if you were to stay, I feel like you would be trying something different and new and novel in order to remain in this relationship. However, these things that you might be doing might be compromising who you are. You're going to be losing yourself in the process. Not only that, but once you stay, like, you're going to realize that despite the fact that this person is here with you, like, mentally, you're going to feel distant, right? You're going to feel that this person is not necessarily in the same wavelength as you. You feel boxed in and not able to vocalize any feelings, right? And you're just going to feel like it's not necessarily going anywhere, and you're still hopeful that this will be something long lasting, even though you fear that despite being together, you're really not together. So let's move on to this aspect here, which is our side B. Side B is going to be if they were to leave. So again, light versus shadow, and this is just their role that they're going to embody if they were to leave, and then we'll see what it looks like within 3 to 6 months. Now we have companion here, right? So it looks like now their light attributes in their role that they're embodying is an openness to have a relationship. This is allowing for a relationship that's both loyal, respectful, and an unselfish type of relationship here. Now, rebel, on the other hand, what they're embodying is something that doesn't necessarily jive with what society norms, or even what they consider right or wrong, right? So they're trying something different and new, and it's not necessarily something that they feel that's just a part of them. Not necessarily to the extent of prostitute, where you're seeing that they're compromising their morals. It's just something more of that's just not necessarily part of their personality. Now, I believe this is just coming from that sense that they still might have a little bit of that sense of being boxed in and unable to talk or discuss their feelings with their partner, right? And that's probably why they have that part of that shadow aspect in rebel. So let's take a look at what their 3 to 6 months would look like if they were to leave. I would use the despair as a definitive core theme of this part here. This would be their partner, right? So their partner looks like, once they got some news, as you could see the letters here, they became very desperate. They became very jealous and controlling. And to the right, I see a rival. So this has to be the person he was cheating with. So you're seeing both of them together, right? Here's another clue with directionality. They're looking forward towards us, and the person that they were cheating with is looking towards him. So we're seeing that now they're not necessarily looking eye to eye, so they're not necessarily together. This person looks very upset and jealous, and this might be because you're kind of letting that energy out of being open to new love. And so I feel like he received some news from the letter, got incredibly desperate, jealous, and now feels very anxious in regards to what's going on in your life, and seems to be pulling away from the person that he was cheating with. Another clue here is the old lady. Old lady is about things dwindling down, right? Things that are eventually falling down. So here, what we're seeing is most likely in 3 to 6 months, this person must have found out that you were with somebody else, and this led for him to break it up with the rival, which is the person he was dating or cheating you with, and he's now trying to evoke or invoke something out of you, right? He's trying to say like, I'm no longer with this person. Like, how can you do this to me? Like, I want to get back together, that kind of thing. And the hidden factor or influence in regarding to this is the card marriage. Now, marriage with companion, this shows to me that in 3 to 6 months, you might be not just open to a relationship, but you're actually you're most likely in a committed relationship at this point in time. And it's not necessarily with the person that obviously from the who cheated on you. So therefore, because you are in a committed relationship, it causes this person to despair. He's trying to contact you, trying to get back with you, telling you that he broke up with this person. And we're seeing that also with the old lady, as well as the fact that they're just not seeing eye to eye. And they're that is what I'm seeing from this particular side. So just to summarize, right here we're seeing the fact that this person is embodying mostly a type of role where they're trying different things in order to maintain that relationship, maybe compromising their values, but they're still going to feel boxed in and hopeful that things will become better and that they still remain in a long-lasting relationship. But it doesn't look like this is the best avenue, right? And on this right hand side, we're seeing that they might commit with somebody else. However, this is going to cause jealousy with their partner, and having them tell you that they're breaking it off with the other person. Now, despite what route this person takes, let's try to figure out what universe wants them to kind of understand in regards to all of this, and kind of what's the word? Kind of like an integration phase, just kind of like a self final empowerment card, right? Like, what are you being pushed forward to do? Okay, so here we have addict. So this is going to help you understand that you got to recognize that you have more of a emotional dependence in regards to this relationship with this person. And this might not be just with this person, but possibly from other or previous relationships. So you have to first understand your role when it comes to your romantic relationships, understand your boundaries, and become more self-sufficient in order for these type of things to improve, right? So finalized like summary here, I would tell the Querent here, regardless of what path you take, I would suggest kind of taking back and slow down and process all of this information, and make sure to realize that you need a little bit more clear boundaries, making sure that you're doing things for yourself, and to make sure that you don't have that sense of dependency with other people, and needing to have that healer mentality, right? And assuming that things will get better. If you don't set those kind of boundaries, you're bound to stay with that person, just regardless of how they treat you. So that would be it in regards to this particular question. So I feel like this kind of spread gives a very clear cut of like possibilities of what it would be if they were to stay versus whether they would go, and what kind of roles that they would embody in either way, and what is one thing that they have to work on regardless of what path they would take. All right, so thank you so much for sticking around for this type of reading, but I think it's very thorough, and it works really well with this type of relationship questions. So let's move on to question 2. Very excited about that. Thanks for watching, guys. A third question, how can I improve my financial situation over the next 6 months? I would use the Lenormand because it's a very no nonsense type of system. It gives you a very clear understanding of the past, present, and future. It gives you an understanding of like any hidden influences and anything that might be directly impacting you, as well as kind of like a very final answer, which would be the very bottom right card. And we'll be using a 3x3 spread. But before we do that, I do want to say that one of the reasons why I feel it's a very no like nonsense type of system is because it's very direct. There's no ambiguous type of like interpretation, specifically if you're looking at different aspects. So here we are talking about finances. So the financial card here is the fish. If we don't see the fish, then we would use the bear, because bear is large sum of money. And careers, we're going to be looking at anchor, which means like a long-term job or a career, financial stability. Fox would be your 9 to 5 job. So this particular deck here has different borders here. So the red is more of like your negative cards, while the yellow is neutral, and your greens are going to be positive cards. We're going to be using this signifier here as our Querent, and I'm just going to remove all the other signifiers out of this particular deck, and we'll move ahead and start shuffling. All right. Okay, so the very first thing we're going to do here is identify the focus card. And as I mentioned before, the very primary one would be the fish, but the fish isn't here. So the second step would be to look for the bear. The bear is here. So that would be our focus card. The second thing we would do, oh, before I even get to that, had the bear not been there, we would have looked for the anchor. Had not any of the focus cards been here, we would use the center card. Why? Because it touches each card. And so therefore it's the most important card out of the spread. The second thing we would look for is the location, where the finances land on this particular spread. Had it been in the very center, we would say it's a very active, high priority type of situation. It's like your financial situation is occurring at this present moment. Things are happening now. Had it been on the edges or in the corners, we would say that there's other priorities that are kind of hindering or obstacles that are affecting your finances at this point in time. It's kind of like in the middle of those two. So here we have the bear. So I would say because it's near the center, it's kind of like an active issue right now, not necessarily influenced or delayed by any other thing. However, because there is the word obstacle right on top of it, we'll kind of get into a little bit more in regards to that. Now, the third step, I would go ahead, once we're done figuring out the location, it's kind of getting into the past, present, and future. So the past, present, and future is always our middle horizontal line. So first we're seeing friend, offering, and vitality. So here we're seeing some sort of offer by a friend, and friend is the dog, in regards to some sort of financial matter. So maybe they're offering their friend a job at their company or something that would lead to an improvement in their finances. And the ultimate like final card or future card would be the sun here. So it's telling me that if the Querent were to take this offer from the job, from the friend, it would lead to success because your sun card is success. So that looks really good. Now, let's look at the vertical, which is our middle row here. Sorry, I'm having the hiccups. Now, in regards to our vertical row, we're showing here what's being influenced versus like the foundation. So the reason why there's an issue in regards to this person's finances is because there's some sort of obstacle here. This large sum of money is unable to be tapped. So that's what we're seeing here. There's some sort of obstacle that's not allowing for this person in order to tap into these large resources. So maybe this is like some sort of, I don't know whether it's like a CD or something to that effect, or it's being tied up to something else and where you're unable to use that money and therefore you're having issues with your finances. And that's why you're trying to find another solution to this situation. So now let's move on to the corners for more of a broad context. So for the top left, you have more of the root cause or the starting point of this issue. So you've been having a financial burden for quite some time here. So that's what's causing all of this issues here. And this financial stress that you're experiencing is further complicated by the fact that there's an obstacle that you're unable to overcome, and that's leading to this issue at present. And I'm reading because I'm kind of using that flavor from that mountain to talk about the top left corner. Now the top right talks about more of the likely direction of where things are headed if nothing really changes. And so if you're unable to overcome this obstacle here, that mountain, you're going to have to go through a very hard decision here. So this and the reason why this why I don't believe this direction, or I'm sorry, this crossroads should be a neutral card is because had this been a very easy no-brainer type of decision, we wouldn't have to make it, like it would be a very easy decision to make, like we would have made it already. However, because the fact that it's here and it's next to the obstacle, it's showing to me that this is a very hard decision to make, and neither of paths are going to be easy, and you don't know whether either of them will be proven fruitful for you. Now, this is only if you were to take the road, if nothing were to change and you just kind of, float as things are progressing. Now we're kind of looking at the strengths or opportunities in regards to possible resources here. So this is kind of showing an abrupt change, an abrupt ending, something swift in action. Now we don't know exactly what it's cutting because there's no cards here on our left hand side. However, as you can see, the handle here is right below the bear, or sorry, not the bear, the dog, and the dog represents friend. So the outcome here and the outcome being the handle touches the dog. So that means whatever happened that swiftly ended, in turn had you or made your friend give you like some sort of opportunity here, whether they are offering a job at their own job site, or something that's they're offering some sort of opportunity to help you in regards to your finances, or even their own money. Maybe they're possibly like offering a loan. So as I mentioned before, you're looking at the scythe and seeing where the blade hits. If there's nothing there, at least we can kind of gather like what the results of this would be. And you gather that from the handle, what the handle is touching. And we see the friend, and the friend is the one who's offering some sort of opportunity here in regards to finances. That's kind of how we read the Lenormand here. The next thing that we would look at is our financial tendencies in the near future. We see here the word opportunity, which is our clover. A clover, if I haven't mentioned before, is more of a lucky break, an opportunity. So in this case, I would say that whatever this had a swift ending of, I'm assuming that might be like a possible job that they recently had, and maybe they got fired, which led the friend to give a possible loan or an offer at their own job. This would only give them a very short break, a financial break, a windfall. It's not necessarily something sustainable. However, because the sun is on top of the clover, I would say that this little lucky break will actually lead to something much more long-standing. So overall, if I were to look at the unfolding, and the way I would see the unfolding of the overall picture here is this diagonal here. So let's move on to this diagonal here. We're looking at the beginning here. We're seeing that sort of financial burden, not being able to tap into that resource that we have here, and it's leading to just obstacle upon obstacle, not knowing exactly direction where to go. Now, in the present here, we have that offering here, and that offering comes from a friend, right? That offering will lead to a short-term break. However, because it is on top of this sun, this will lead to something even better long term. Now, if we move on to the things that are kind of like hidden or behind the scenes, we go from top right to the bottom left. So we would move on to, sorry, I'm just thinking about this and saying it correctly. We're looking at the crossroads, the bouquet, which is the offering here, and then we have the scythe. So in regards to this decision about the offering, we're looking at possible sudden shift or change, and an ending to something else. So if you were to take this particular offer here, we're going to see you're going to have to shuffle and move things around because things are going to be ending. So maybe if you were to take this offer by your friend, whether it's a loan or a new job, you're going to have to break other things in order for things to flow. So what I mean by that is, like, if he's offering you a job, then that means you're going to have to quit your other job in order for it not to necessarily be such a short lucky break, but in order for you to pursue other things as well concurrently, or for you to just kind of zone in on this and just make it materialize into something a little bit more permanent. So in regards to the advice here, I would have to go with, yes, I would definitely take the offer that you have from your friend. I think that even though you feel it might be something short term, it actually will materialize into something a little bit more permanent, just because of the fact that the sun kind of warms up things and gives it more of a permanence, as opposed to this clover here was short term. Yes, it will mean that you might have to break off other things that you had if already you haven't broken into. And the reason why is because no matter what you're going to do, it looks like you're having a really difficult time tapping into those large resources here. So I would say that your friend here is acting out of your own or is acting out of benefits here, and is going to help you out in regards to the situation. So that would be my my overall summary. Say yes to your friend. He's going to really help you out in this regard, and you're going to actually see some progress in regards to your finances here in the next 6 months. But that's only if you are, able to have this happen or have this materialize. And that's it. Thank you so much for listening into my rambling here in regards to Lenormand. Let's go to the next question. For the next question we're going to do, it will be a career question. I'm unhappy at my job. Should I stay and try to shift my role, or start planning to change? Now, for this question, I want to use Geomancy. Geomancy is a divination system that creates symbols from random numbers. It reveals your emotional and mental state, outside influences and events, and the likely outcome. So I think it's really great for this type of question. The reason why it works, it's a simple binary system. It works with either odd or even numbers, and each will form a figure. This makes it great for yes or no questions, decision-making questions like this one. And how to make a figure, you roll the dice. You could draw dots or even use sticks. Each line is odd for 1 dot or even 2 dots. When you stack up 4, this creates 1 figure. There are 16 possible figures from all of this, and each has its own meaning, kind of like tarot. And the full chart, you can make from the 4 starting figures, and it'll help generate the rest of the chart. So this will tell us the full story of your question. And the reason why it works is because Geomancy gives like really clear answers on many aspects of your question. For example, for career, we're going to look into income, contracts, work dynamics between your co-workers, any opportunities, anything hidden, and even more. So let's start working on this. I'm going to use my dice here. So I'm going to remove the sticks. I'll just keep them there. First, I'll put them. Let's start interpreting this information here. We're going to first start with the second, which is about your money. You got puer here. So to me, that shows a very strong drive in order to push yourself to make money quickly. It'll feel more reactive versus something that's planned, just because puer is very much like fire energy. Think of like wands in the suit of tarot. So now let's talk about the third house, which is about communication and as well as skills, right? So here we have tristeza, and this is sadness. So this suggests that there's going to be a lot of a huge steep learning curve when it comes to your skills. It's going to feel like you're being tested. Okay, so that's going to be steep learning curve. So I'll just make that symbol there. It's going to be a little bit hard in regards to just also with communication with coworkers, since tristeza is also part of that house here. So now let's move on to 6, which is more of your day-to-day type of work. So that's like your duties or your responsibilities at that job. And you got acquisitio. So this is a positive sign. This will show that there's actual gains, opportunities, whether it's going to be some sort of like achievements or just recognition in that sense. It's a very rewarding type of environment here. Okay, now let's move on to your contracts. That will be 7th house. So we got tristeza again. That is a more of a negative sign here, and it's cautioning you that maybe there's a term in the contract or something about the contract did not match your expectations, because tristeza means sadness. So there's something there that necessarily didn't gel well with you. Maybe you just didn't get what you were hoping for in regards to like salary, or just something about the negotiations just didn't go well with you. Now with the 9th house, this is more of like your long-term vision, whether it's aligning with your purpose. And we got puer again, same as the your 2nd house. So again, we're seeing that motivation to move forward, making sure that this plan aligns with what you want it to be, but it's still really undefined, right? There's no structure around this type of drive. So let's see in regards to your reputation, or how others see you in regards to this particular job. So this is more like professional reputation. And you got caput draconis. This is a really excellent sign. It's about like new beginnings, visibility, gaining recognition. So you're kind of like stepping into something fresh and promising. So this is definitely a positive. Like, just this to me seems like there's a possible chance for promotion here. Okay, and then let's move on to 12, which is like hidden factors or things like that. And we got Cronus just the same as your 10th house. So to me, again, this is reinforcing there's going to be unexpected help, opportunities here that's going to really help you out. So just to reiterate and not to overwhelm you guys, it looks like very strong drive, but not necessarily a good foundation to all of this drive in order to get or move forward or progress forward in regards to this job. It's going to be a very steep learning curve. It might be hard to at first adjust with your coworkers here. However, it's very rewarding. I feel like once you understand like what is expected out of you, you're going to really thrive here. Contracts, it does look a little iffy. I feel like you're not necessarily happy with what you negotiated. And then we're seeing that there's actual opportunities. Maybe the coworkers are going to be able to help you, or help you in regards to some sort of opportunities, just be there to help you with networking, things like that. If we move into witnesses, we're going to see more of the internal versus external aspects of things. And this is omissio, which to me refers to the fact that there could be feelings of like loss, perhaps, or guilt in regards to the previous job that you had. So maybe you're just still feeling that loss from your previous job. However, when you have conjunctio as your right hand side witness, it shows that your coworkers are actually going to really help you out. Like, this shows there's a connection with others through networking, forming partnerships, helping you move forward. And then we have finally Fortuna Minor as your judge, your final verdict. And Fortuna is great card, or I'm sorry, not a card, but figure. However, it is minor. So this shows that there's success that is achievable through more of like a consistent small efforts. However, I think we can change this from major to minor by doing a couple of tweaks here. The first tweak is being consistent and showing up, because yes, this learning skills might be hard and steep and really hard for you, like you feel like you're being tested. However, if you're consistent about it, I think this will you'll be able to progress and succeed. And also renegotiating your contract will actually help as well, because I think that's the only really negative thing that you got out of this. So overall, if you were to leave and get a new job, yes, sure, it's going to be hard. You're going to feel tested in regards to your skill set, but you're growing, right? There's a sense of camaraderie here from the coworkers. I feel like they're really going to help you out in regards to networking, partnerships, just feeling that support from them. Contract wise, of course, like I mentioned before, it's going to be a little bit harder negotiating something that you like, and hopefully it doesn't stay this way where you just don't feel like it didn't go well for you. It's great that you have this drive. However, I feel like there's a need to be a little bit more stable in regards to kind of figuring out what's best for you, because there's just no foundation in regards to this particular drive. If you're consistent with your skills and just progressing forward, there is a chance of visibility, so there's a chance for promotion down the line. And of course, the underlying emotional current here is you do feel a loss, but that's most likely because you quit the other job. All right, so let's move on to if you were to stay. Now, if you were to stay, we're going to look at not as many of these because it's the same type of job. So we're just going to look at your income, your skills, and communication with your coworkers at this point in time. We'll look at whether this still aligns with your purpose. Let's take a look also at any hidden factors that you might want to know about before considering leaving or staying. And then we'll look at the witnesses and the judge at the end. So for the income here, we're seeing tristeza. So this to me shows stagnation or even a drop, right? Because this is sadness. So it also connects with your self-worth. So this could actually be affecting your morale and how you feel like you're being valued at your job. So the fact that there's no like, maybe you were asking for a raise and it just didn't happen. So you're kind of feeling like you're kind of leveled out here, or even, it's taken a hit. So because of this has really impacted your way of like your self-value in regards to your job. So it's affected both. So we're going to put negative there. In regards to your skill set and communication, we have Cauda Draconis. It's different from Caput Draconis. This is the tail end of the dragon. So to me, that means an ending. And because there's an ending, that means you've kind of hit a wall in regards to how much they're able to use your skill set. So I feel like you're not learning new things. It's kind of like this is just a kind of a routine type of situation, and you're kind of not being able to move up the ladder. Another thing here that might mean that regards to ending is the communication, because this also deals with communication. So coworkers, maybe there's a sense that there's a severance between you and coworkers. Communication may feel stagnant. There's a severing of ties, perhaps. So let's look at like long-term vision, a sense of purpose, and we have via. Via can be neutral because this means movement without any fixed direction, right? So you may be adapting to the circumstances instead of like actively controlling it, and this might be affecting you and lead to dissatisfaction, and it's also affecting your morale here on your second house. If you were to look at any hidden restrictions or things like that, again, we have the Cauda Draconis. So this is little support behind the scenes. There's really no real help or backup coming your way. And that might be because you're kind of like, there's not much communication, or like perhaps there's like a severing of ties between you and your coworkers. And now we're going to move on to the witnesses. So the internal aspect, right? We have conjunctio. So conjunctio means a union. So this to me explains that you're still kind of wanting to make things work between you and your job to find that connection. And then for the right hand side, we have Fortuna Minor. So there might be a little bit of a success here, right? If you put in the effort to stay, you might have small wins, but they really won't last long. This is not something fulfilling. And finally, the judge is omissio, and omissio means loss. So there's going to be loss and disappointment, which suggests to me that staying can make you feel like there's a letdown. And that makes sense, right? Because there's a letdown in regards to there's kind of like you kind of top yourself in regards to how much income is coming in. Your morale is low because you can't get any further in regards to income. Your skill set is like leveling out. Like there's no chance of progression. There seems to be a severing of ties in communication with your coworkers. There's nobody really helping you out here. There's just very little support behind the scenes, and we're seeing that there's really no direction in regards to like purpose in this job, right? So even though you're trying to make things work, it's very small wins here, and ultimately you're going to feel like a loss. So if I were to summarize this for our querent here, I would say if you were to stay, I feel like you're just not necessarily going to feel like you're going anywhere. It's going to feel stuck, and you're not going to get anything further in regards to your income. You're not going to progress in skill sets. You're not going to feel supported despite the fact that you're trying to make things work. It's going to feel like it's just small wins. It might feel comfortable, but there's no progression or moving forward. Now, in regards to moving into another job, however, you are seeing a strong drive in regards to money. There is a chance for promotion. Your skill sets is going to be steep. However, there's a chance of growth here, right? This is a very rewarding job. The contract is the only thing that I would recommend renegotiating, because it looks like you might not be too happy in what they're offering. There is quite a bit of support between your co-workers here, and a chance for promotion. And of course, you're still going to feel a little bit of guilt because you did leave the other job. However, if you don't work on this, like these small progressions will lead to better or a better future as opposed to staying. So that would be my overall gist or summary of these two. And as you can see, I feel like Geomancy would really work really well for, these type of questions where you don't know where to go, because it gives you a good sense of just different aspects of that particular question. So yeah, what do you guys think? Do you guys like Geomancy? I really do. All right, let's move on to the next question. For the question number 5, my relationship with a close family member is strained. What role am I playing, and how can I begin to heal or create a better boundary? Now, for this type of questions, when it's interpersonal relationships, I would go with the Glowwood Companion. This is a brand new deck for me, but I saw a bunch of review videos explaining how it works, and I feel like the way it's designed really helps with uncovering stuff in regards to relationships. And I'll give you an example. So the card here is the birch, and I'll just move everything away from here. And for this question here, it talks about this tree being very transient, right? And it's kind of like a trailblazer, allowing for other things to finally materialize after it has left. So it kind of is like a host and a nourisher, and eventually helps with this. And then it gives you keywords as well as the description of the tree. But most importantly, what I feel is helps with relationships are the symbols around the card. It talks about its characteristics as well as its associations. So the associations are what kind of helps nourish and build this birch versus what are things that can impact the birch. So if you were to go to the next page, you notice that the card Birch Polyphore, under special association, under association, it says it reduces the birch. So if these two were together in a spread, we would know that the Birch Polyphore would negatively impact the birch. And so we're seeing here a dynamic between the two of perhaps characters in whatever spread you're reading. So for this particular question, I would do a 7-card spread where we're seeing kind of the role of the querent, we're seeing the root cause, what they're giving and what they're receiving, any hidden influences, and of course, because they're asking about boundaries, we're going to ask about what boundaries we need to strengthen, and of course, what's the step towards healing. So let's start. I'll put up the spread on the screen so it'll be a little bit easier. Okay, I'm back. Since this is a brand new deck for me, I did have to take a few notes here from the guidebook, and it's just so incredible. I can't stop gushing about it. So here we go. So So here we're seeing the snail as their role. So if I were talking to the querent, I would say you're navigating the outer world in your own terms. However, as a snail, when there's conflict or any type of difficulty that's coming up, your instinct is to pull back in, go into your little shell or cocoon and retreat in your own space. And you're the type of person who likes to work things privately, right? And even though this could be seen as a strength, right, because you're protecting yourself, it can also create some distance between you and that close family member that you have. Now, when we're talking about the dynamic here, we're seeing the amphid, and amphids are more like a parasitic type of creature. So one person benefits more from keeping the other in a very like weak position, and that's what I got from the guidebook. It might not be intentional, but it creates a pattern where that relationship there's not a good balance, right? A balance of power here. So one is there's not mutual respect here. There's just a lack of power or a very huge discrepancy with power dynamics here. Now, in regards to the milking bonnet, this shows me that you have like a very powerful ability to take something negative and transform it into something useful. So you're the kind of person that you turn challenges into lessons and growth. But the problem is, because of that, maybe you're tolerating things more than is considered healthy for you. And in regards to the relationship dynamic here, we're seeing the milk cap, which shows a firm dependency between the two of you. So there's kind of like an emotional tie or a feeling of obligation that cannot be easily broken. So this means avoiding the situation completely is not necessarily the answer because of that dependency, or at least not immediately, right? And then the European oil beetle shows that when you receive from them, it may look helpful or generous at the surface, but underneath it, there's always some sort of like strings attached. There's a self-serving motive. You may be getting more than you actually, or they are getting more than what they're giving, right? And then we have the snow lichen, which advises you to strengthen that boundary, to keep distance, to see the situation clearly without cutting them off completely. It'll give you clarity and your need to act from a very calm or grounded place. And lastly, we have the stag beetle, which shows you coming to a turning point. It's really great because the stag beetle in the guidebook is talking about like once you hit a certain growth phase, now there's like a fork in the road and you have to choose which one of the two, and which is perfect for this spread here because this choice you make will kind of set the tone for how this relationship will move forward. So it's kind of like telling you to prepare yourself internally. So whichever path you will take, you do it with, that confidence that you've already kind of looked in and kind of processed this information. So a quick summary here, you're someone who like values your space and independence, but this relationship involves a very huge power imbalance and more of a dependency than you've anticipated, right? You do have the strength to turn challenges into growth, but it's important to set these boundaries. Looks like you're kind of at a turning point at this point in time where your choice will directly impact your relationship and with this family member. So really great oracle deck. I feel like this oracle deck is really perfect for interpersonal relationships because you're seeing that dynamic of how all of these creatures and trees and fungus interconnect with others and how their role in the community and vice versa. So yes, this is the kind of deck that I would use for these type of questions. All right, so I think we are done, guys. I had to cut this down quite a bit because I had answered other questions, but there's just no way. I think we would be hitting like 2 hours or 3 hours at minimum. All right, guys, thank you for sticking around, and hopefully this shows my process and how I would answer questions for querents. Thank you so much for doing this tag, Miss Kulala. This was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. And hopefully you guys got something out of it. I would love to see how your process goes. So please, this is open to everybody. And yeah, so you guys have a wonderful week, and I will see you on the next video.